Welcome to the Mindful Movement Show. We're your hosts, Tony and Amanda Johnson.
This is a podcast dedicated to helping moms and dads heal their hurts, transform their health from the inside out, and become the best people, partners, and parents they can possibly be.
Our mission is to normalize struggle and profile stories of resilience, character building, and the process of healing and becoming.
In Season 1, we spotlight healers from a variety of modalities who are also parents. We hope you enjoy the show. It is our pleasure to welcome Clean Cut Nutrition to our show, the Mindful Movement Show. How are you doing, ladies?
Hi.
We're great.
Doing
Awesome.
great.
And they're tuning in from where now?
We are in New Jersey.
Awesome. You got to love the 21st century where we can have a discussion and air it to audiences worldwide, even though we are on opposite sides of the country. And we have these ladies on because they are tremendous experts in the field of nutrition, fitness, and they're also mothers of their kids their own. And so it is our mission to help spread messages of loving kindness, mindfulness, and self-acceptance, and encourage parents to transform their lives from the inside out. And so part of our belief system is that our experiences shape us and that we can also become the architects of our future. So I'd like to just begin by asking each of you ladies to describe how your background and experience and ultimately your upbringing shape how you show up as people, parents, and coaches.
Okay. So I'm Lori, and I think I had a very good upbringing. I can't lie. You know, I don't want to be like, oh, I had a terrible upbringing. I had a great upbringing. My parents were high school sweethearts. They're still married today. And, you know, we were the put together family. But from that, looking back now, made me be very insecure about things. And, you know, I'm not sure what or why about myself and about my friendships and about everybody wanting to like me and that kind of thing. So like that is always in the back of my mind of trying not to be insecure and trying to instill that in my kids. Be confident, be strong. I was an athlete growing up. So, you know, my dad was at every game and I'll always remember that. And I think it's super important with my kids now to make sure I'm at every game and be supportive. And sports and athletics with kids these days are very different than they were when we grew up. Everybody's kids going to the NFL, everybody's kids, you know, going to D1 college, and they're spending a lot of money. And these kids are burning out. And I sort of am trying to use my experience growing up with just really using sports to have fun and try to teach my kids that being on a team is not about going to play, you know, for the best school in the country. It's about the friendships you form and the bonds you form and the life lessons that you learn. And that to me is super important, you know, on that coaching and aspect end. Now, you know, with our clients, I just try to use that, you know, insecurity can come with having a great upbringing or trauma or anything. And it's okay to not be perfect. And it's okay to be kind to yourself and not put all this pressure on yourself. And as a nutrition coach, to fit in your jeans all the time or to eat perfect and to not feel guilty about it. So that's where I'm sort of coming from.
That's
So
awesome.
just like Lori, I had a great upbringing. I had a great family. It was 4 of us. My parents also super cute. Engaged 2 weeks after they met, married. They're still married. They're adorable. I know it doesn't happen anymore. Don't do that. But it worked for them. It worked for them. They're wonderful. I mean, actually, their names are Louise and Louis. Their birthdays are November 8th, November 9th. Like, you can't make this stuff up. But they're wonderful. They really are. I asked my mom why. She said yes. And her answer is he made me laugh. And to this day, he still does. And I do believe that humor is something that's super, super important. I think it takes that pressure off of a lot of things. If we could just find the silver lining. And I feel that I have always looked for the silver lining, not necessarily in myself, but for others, which I think is why I tend to coach that way. You know, I think my pressures came from peers and living in that world of trying to be perfect and trying to be popular and be, you know, the best and presidents of everything. And something that I guess in my life, there wasn't a lot of failure. So when you do fail, it's really hard to cope with because you tend to always win. You get the part or you get the role or whatever it might be. So for me, it was a lot about judgment. So I always, for some reason, felt judged. And it wasn't from my family. I think it was from my peers, and it's a natural thing, but I took it on as judgment. So in my coaching, I leave all judgment aside, like no judgment whatsoever. Just tell me your honest truth, and then we can talk and we can make this really happen. Like there's no secrets. If you're trying to hide something, then I can't help. So I believe that if you feel secure, you can make some real change. If you really believe that you're supported, that you can make some real change. So that's sort of where my coaching comes from. And, you know, for my daughters, I don't want them to be perfect. And they're not. Sometimes they tell me too much. I don't want to know everything. But we do have an open relationship, and they really do tell me a lot because I don't have judgment. I'm just there and I'm listening, but I also am guiding them. And I say to them all the time, it is my job to make you good human beings. And I'm giving you advice so that you can follow, because you don't know what it's like to be 46, but I know what it's like to be 14. I know what it's like to be a girl at 17. So when they say, well, you don't understand, my answer is, no, you don't understand what it's like to be a mom. Just hear me, take the pieces of it, because I know from my experience, if I didn't want to listen to my mother, when she said it out loud, it just stuck in my head, and it grew and it grew and it grew. And it ended up making me a more secure person and really to be a good human being. And I think that's what our jobs are, right? Yeah. To raise good humans.
I think that's fabulous. And I know, Tony, I don't want to speak for you, but we certainly identify the same way. And especially as a woman growing up in the world that, you know, we have, it's just amazing how much pressure is put on you to look a certain way. Even as a mom with Instagram, you know, it's like to have the perfect car, the perfect kids, the perfect outfit. And so I really like that you guys are kind of addressing it. Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
It's true. It's true.
Yeah. And so I really like that you guys touch on that because, you know, I think in so many ways that insecurity can either make you that can shape you, you know, and trying not to pass that on to our kids as well. And so just to kind of go off on a tangent on that real quick, I'm curious if each of you can kind of share, you know, one takeaway for our listeners to help empower our kids, you know, in the face of the world and that kind of judgment that it can place now on our kids.
I think I'm going to go back to the social media world because we are the first generation parenting social media the way it is now. And we have no idea how to do it. We're just pulling from the air here and, you know, like trying to figure this out. And, you know, going back to that, saying everything you see on social media is not real. Yeah. It's like back in the day with magazines, how they would always sculpt the models and make them look perfect and cut inches off of them. It's like, you can do that on social media now. And it's so prevalent. And, you know, I always say to them too, like, you have to be very careful, not only what you're looking at, but what you're putting out there. Because I'll go back to the sports aspect of everything. Coaches are watching your Instagram if you're being recruited. Yeah. Coaches are watching what you're putting on. And if you put something on that is inappropriate, you can lose a scholarship. It can change your life. It can change your life. Sure. So going back to just, you know, being smart and teaching them, like Caren said, like raising good humans.
Yeah. You know, I think we talk about social media with our kids so much because it is just the world they live in that they're starting to recognize that everything that they're looking at is not real. Yeah. I mean, because you talk about it ad nauseum, you know, and I'll give it a perfect example. Like, you know, my friend will have this beautiful Instagram post and I'll text her. I'm like, oh my God, how was that vacation? It was awesome. She's like, it was horrible. I'm like, what? She's like, this one was sick. This one was annoying. She goes, those are just what I put up on Instagram. I tell my kids those stories. I'm like, kids, this isn't real. Some of it's real. Some of it's congratulations. That's amazing. You know, and you're proud of your moments. My other thing is my daughter's like, it's on my private. And I'm like, well, how many kids are on your private? She's like, oh, there's like 60. I go, that's not private, honey. If you're having people over and you're having 4 couples over, that's an intimate gathering. If you're having 60 people, you're having a party. And she's like, oh. Right? Like, so I think if you speak of it in what it really is, they start to recognize. My older daughter is now 17 years old. And she actually took herself off of social media.
So
she takes breaks.
My 17-year-old as well. I'll go to his Instagram and he's got like 4 pictures up.
They do. They start
That's
to
it.
recognize.
They understand.
They do, because you're talking about it, and they're getting older with it, that they are like, I have my friends now. I can go talk to my friends. So it is a phase, but it's a very influential phase.
And one other thing I will say to all those parents out there, like, they're going to one-up you every single time on social media.
Yes. You
think you figured out and you can watch everything they're doing, and all of a sudden they found another way to get around it. Or they found another way to post some, I'm telling you, knowing from experience, they figure it out. They're smarter than us in that world. So we do the best we can, and we just try to teach good values and, learn as we go here, because again, we don't have anything to go off of.
And like Lori said, sometimes I say to my kids, like, there are mistakes that I can help you undo, and some I just cannot. So and I say it to my kids all the time, please make good choices. Just try to make the better choice. And sometimes I do, and sometimes I don't.
And I want to let you know that you touched on so many important discussion points that we'll get to later. Everything from judgments and expectations in a world of appearances and perfectionism, everything from empowering young kids, especially young women, to see the world for what it is, but also conversations like this that can put out into the social media sphere authentic, real voices talking about how imperfections are okay, and to normalize struggle, and to normalize that, hey, we go through moments of pain that can become our purpose. And so now I'd like to segue into discussing your families. And Laura, you have 3 boys.
I do.
And Caren, you have 2.
2 girls.
2 girls, right? Okay. So can you obviously you run a very successful business. You have family at home that you're helping either get to practice or get to school. You're making meals, and you're able to do that all with some degree of balance. And I know that a lot of our listeners view your life as like, hey, that's picturesque, that's ideal. But can you walk us through what an average day is like in your life that can help our listeners understand, hey, we just do what we have to get by?
All right, I'm going to give you our today. Okay. So we're both getting ready. We're trying to meet up. We're going to get all our technology together. And I get a text from my daughter. Can you bring me my costume? I need it for cheer. And, oh, by the way, I need you to find that bra for me. And, oh, wait a minute. If this came, and I'm like it's literally like bullets. Like, I'm like, and I'm like, okay, sure. And she's like, oh, thanks, Mom. I text her and I'm like, all right, I'm on my way. She's like, my son was sick. I had to pick him up from school. I'm like, does it ever end? And it really doesn't. If I have a day, and Lori can agree, if she has a day that you plan and it actually goes as planned, you I rocked that.
Yeah.
Yes. Never happens.
And going back to being like kind to yourself is that it's not your fault.
Find the humor.
Stuff happens. We get up at 6. We get my kids to school, go work out, try to get through the day without a phone call to come pick somebody up or something like that. Or, make sure that there's food in the house for dinner. What am I making? And a lot of times too, like if my husband's working from home, there's like, who's on a call, who's doing this, who's doing that. And then, you pick them up and then the chaos begins, because then it's like, who's going here, who needs to go to the gym, who needs to go to the doctor, who needs to go, and it's never going to be the same every day.
I feel like we have like 2 lives, and I guess every parent will feel this way. You have when your kids are of school age, you have this life that you can do your things, right? You plan what you can plan, and they somehow hijack it all the time, but you get through it. And then, like you said, you pick them up from school. They do. You pick them up from school, and it's just like you change hats.
Yeah.
You're like, okay, mom hat. And you never know what that's going to happen. So this year, I actually started off the school year saying to myself, you know what? I'm not going to plan anything from 3 o'clock on, because I don't know what they need. And what they need is me. And that's okay. Everything else could wait. And I still go back to try to find the humor in it. And I'm not great at it all the time, but it just takes that peg down a notch when you make it kind of funny. Like, oh, can I get? I'm like, oh, because I've only been there 4 times today. Sure.
Yep.
Sure, let's go back.
What loop are you in this evening?
Yeah.
I'm in the gymnastics this loop. I'm over in this loop. Like, we're just looping and dropping and picking up. And
We just tried to make it funny. I was like, so Lori, I've been in the car since 3:30. What time have you been in the car since? You know, like it is what it is. And it's a moment in time, because I can tell you that my moment has shifted. I have a 17-year-old who now drives. My daughter my youngest is a freshman. So this is the first year. And I keep saying I'm off for a year, and then I'm back on for a year and a half, and then I'm off again. Because I actually have gotten several hours of my life back, because I don't drive anyone to school. They drive each other home. She drives her home from school. If I need her to pick her up from a friend's house, I actually have time again. So just stay patient, because it does come back around. You know, with every phase, there's different challenges, but there's also some great stuff. So I would just say that just when you're in it, kind of enjoy it, because I miss the conversations I had with my daughter driving her around. Yeah. I really do. And I heard that. I heard about it, you know, and now I'm living it. Yeah. So it is a phase, but you know, you kind of just keep shifting with it. You have to shift.
Yeah. You spoke about so many interesting things that I want to ask a few follow-ups on. Number one, the stages of being a parent, right? You called it phases, but we like to think about it as seasons, right? Yeah. We have 2 under 3, which is a different season than where you're at, but it's equally demanding and equally wild. Yeah. And you spoke to the idea that sometimes you have to make it funny, otherwise you might end up crying.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's our life so often.
Yeah.
In the sense that we have tiny tyrants that demand our time and energy. I wonder, what do you do to make sure? You also spoke to not having expectations and to creating boundaries that kind of allow you to bend with what their needs are. But what do you do to make sure that you and your time, even if it's 5 to 30 minutes a day, is protected and guarded, so that you can fit a workout in, so that you can shoot a podcast? What do you do to make sure that you can give time to your business and time to yourself, in addition to meeting the demands of your kids?
You know, I think as they get older, that part gets easier. Like being able to do a podcast at 1:00 in the afternoon because my son's driving home from school today and my other son's walking home from school, you know, and, you know, being able to work out at 8 a.m. because everyone's dropped at school already. But that's the good part. The bad part is with bigger kids, bigger problems. It gets tough, and different problems arise, and the real world, they're starting to look at the real world, and it's scary right now. Yeah. And so bigger problems will arise. But at the same time, I mean, you're getting a little life back. You know, what I could say is that they understand if you're finishing up a podcast, like I'm like, no one can bother me till we're done in here. And then I'll put the mom hat on. But because they're older, they understand that. When they're 3, they don't care. They're going to be pulling on your leg. They're going to be crying. It doesn't matter, right? And what I do want parents of 3-year-olds to know, that embrace every second, because I miss it so much, even though it was so chaotic. But when I look back at pictures, I'm like, oh,
I know.
I miss that face that doesn't talk back.
Or
I just miss that little cute face, you know, or like, you know, like I saw a picture of my son and he was in the car seat and he had chocolate icing from a cupcake all over him. And I was like, oh my God, that is like the cutest picture. Probably then I didn't think it was that cute, but it's like the cutest picture now.
Yeah. So for me, like I have certain things so you talk about finding your boundaries. There were certain things, and exercise was one of them, that they were non-negotiable for me. My kids learned to figure out how to go to the daycare because I was working out.
They worked out with us.
They would sit next to me. I would figure out, Lori and I both started a stroller exercise class, totally different states, because we were determined to keep ourselves active.
And that's how we met.
And you know, my kids just learned, I just knew what treats to bring. And some days they were good and some days they were bad. And then it goes back to that judgment, right? So here I am, you're teaching your stroller class and you're with these other moms and your kid's not acting perfectly, eating their Cheerios out of their little cup that doesn't spill on the floor. And you're embarrassed because they're screaming and yelling. If you just ignore them and just keep doing what you're doing, they stop. It's your non-negotiable. They're safe. They're with you. Nothing's wrong. Yeah. They just pissed. They're pissed because they want your attention. They, you know, like there's boundaries. We don't have to bend for every single thing that they want, because with time they got a little bit older and it was like, all right, Ryan, listen, we're going to stroller class. This is how we act. Okay. Right. So when they can speak back, but you just have to pick what your non-negotiable is. Whatever's truly that important to you is your non-negotiable, whatever that might be, whether it's putting your feet up on the couch or exercising or going for a walk. Yeah. it's just your non-negotiable. And if obviously there are days that you don't win, but if that is the majority of the time you fit it in, then you're going to find that little bit of, I had that moment.
My kids always worked out with me. When my kids were little, I would pick a race to do every year, and I would run with them in the stroller, and every mile I'd drop something to them. Good job. One more mile, one more mile. I would, right? But I look back at them and I see pictures of my kids with a half a pound weight when he's 4, like walking around, like he doesn't know what he's doing, but just to embed that in their head, and they know this is what mommy does. Right. And just like Caren said, whether it's even just having a cup of coffee in the morning, that's your non-negotiable. Teach them young. They'll be okay.
They're gonna be fine. They're safe.
And
That's good.
And this is how we create cultures that are founded in healthy practices and meaningful connections. And it's no wonder that now your kids do athletics and now your kids value movement. And coming from a family that didn't necessarily prioritize that, no wonder I had, a bunch of weight to lose and I had to teach myself those practices. Right. So good on you. And I really commend 2 things you said. Number one, that there's power in presence, no matter what stage you're in, because you can always look back on those moments and wish you had them, and if we're present and in the moment throughout each season or phase of life, then we get the most out of it. And we're not left wondering, oh, what would it have been like if I was more available for myself and my kids?
So true.
Yeah. So kind of moving on to speak a little bit more about your business and what you do, being a parent, trying to fuel bodies, keep them healthy. That's something that we have certainly had to adapt and learn, being challenged in new ways, feeding littles and still making sure that we're maintaining, the nutrition and the balance that we need for ourselves. And so I'm just curious for our other listeners out there, if you can share some tips or maybe a little bit of insight into how you help guide moms and dads through that process of keeping the whole family healthy with the nutrition.
Yeah. It is so easy to eat healthy now. It is so easy. You're going to eat anyway, right? We're going to cook anyway. We got to eat. You can walk into a convenience store and choose to grab a Coke, or you can choose to grab a water. You can walk into a convenience store now and you could choose to grab a yogurt, or you can choose to grab a candy bar. There's clean food everywhere. You walk into Starbucks and there's clean food. You can walk into your grocery store and you can grab a grab and go meal that is clean, that's made in your grocery store these days. It is so easy. There is meal delivery services. I go to my local big deli and I get their chickpea salad twice a week, just because it's in my refrigerator and it goes on a salad or it goes in a wrap, or it's just like there already. I know what's in it. It's clean. So it's just so easy to eat clean these days. But what we have to do is break habits, because most of the time people are, let's say mom's carpooling, right? And it's like 5:30 and she's starving and she goes, oh, we're going to McDonald's. Now, what if she had a bag of nuts in the car with her, threw a few like in her mouth just to get her home, and then had something like super easy to eat at home, right? You can have eggs for dinner, right? Who's to say you only have eggs for breakfast? Right? You can have a sandwich for dinner. You can, like, there's things like we need to think out of the box of like having a breakfast, lunch, dinner, snack. Like there's different ways to do that. And also if you're eating properly in the proper amounts, which a lot of people don't know, right? Like people are like, I eat so clean. And then we look at their menu and we're like, you're totally missing healthy fat or X, Y, and Z. Right. And it's little simple tweaks that make a difference, that maybe you won't have a witching hour at 3:00 when your kids come home if you make sure that you have the proper nutrition at noon or 1 or 11 or whatever it is. Right. And people also tend to think all or nothing. They look at a blueprint menu guide and everybody's eating the same thing. The way we teach is that if there's broccoli on your menu guide and you hate broccoli, I don't ever want you to put it in your mouth. Because it's 6 weeks in a day. When you're done with our program, you're going to go right back to pizza. Right. So if we can tweak your habits and change your habits to making healthy meals, because healthy meals doesn't mean prepping for 10 hours in the kitchen, right? I made a salad yesterday that I chopped 3 things up and
it's delicious.
And and had lentils on top of it. And it was done. It took me literally 5 minutes instead of making, I don't know, a pizza for lunch or something like that. So it's just changing your mindset and looking at what you're looking at, what you're putting in your body.
My suggestion for parents that have littles, here would be my suggestion, because with all of the clients that we have, I can tell you the biggest hurdle is breaking old habits. Those habits were formed when they were little, right? So I had a client of mine who was brilliant, and she was writing this great book, and her book is called, It's Not About the Broccoli. I got that right. So it's like, you give your kid a healthy cookie and they're 3. They don't know that it's a healthy cookie. It's a cookie. All you're teaching them is that they can have a cookie, right? So it's about choices, and everything that we do is about choices. So when my kids were little, if they didn't like what was for dinner, their choice was cottage cheese or an apple. They couldn't say, well, I want pizza. If they didn't want what was on dinner, you didn't like it, that's fine. But here are your other 2 choices. And you know that those are your 2 choices. And I learned that from her because she was raising a very healthy eater. And I can tell you that it worked for a really long time. I got a little lazy and let little habits creep in that I'm watching my kids and I'm trying to break them, because those habits that are like sweets after dinner or sweets after lunch or constantly having the carby kind of food, that's a habit that they're creating. And it's really hard to break, and it's hard to break as an adult. So my suggestion to parents is really be mindful and stick to your rules. Like, if it's not this, then it's this. And yes, you can have a cookie, but you can have 1 sweet a day. You pick when you want to have it. Again, this was a great advice from this woman. And if my daughter was like, but I want the cookie now. And I was like, okay, well then you can't have the cookie later. She'd be like, sure, that's great. Of course you're going to say that, right? But later came.
Yeah.
Right? And she was like, but I, and I was really strict about it until I wasn't. And I wish I stuck to my guns on it, because I would have different eaters, and I'm, they're older now, so I can have different conversations, right? We eat out of the refrigerator. This is why we eat this. This is the healthier version of that. So it's a different conversation because I have many adults now, but that would be my advice, is stick with your plan and don't crumble into it, because it's easier to give them the Cheerios or the, sweet snack while you're food shopping so they're quiet.
Let me piggyback on that 1 second, because as we're saying healthy, we don't want your kids or yourself to never have a treat.
Oh, of course.
And that's a whole other topic of our program, is that perfect's boring, right? Like, I mean, if you want to go out and have a big cheat meal, let's go for it. Like, this is life. But what do you do around it? What do you do before and after? Similar to if I'm going to have this here, I'm not going to have it here. And that's sort of how we teach our program, which is able to balance the foods you love. But how do you do that, and what do you do around it? Because what you do around the food you love is all the bad habits.
And remember, you're the parent.
Yep.
You're food shopping.
Mm-hmm.
You have the choice of what's coming into that house. So just make it doesn't have to be perfect. And it doesn't have to be, kid stuff could be healthier versions of kid stuff. Just try to make the better choice and kind of stick with your plan would be because it's really hard to undo bad habits.
And I think coming from someone who was not raised in a family that ate at the same table, there's lots of data that supports the idea that self-regulation in terms of portion size and in terms of selecting, as you're talking about the better choice, are improved or enhanced when we sit at the same table. Do you do anything in your program to encourage families to actually sit down and practice mindfulness while they're eating, as opposed to like eating in front of a TV or eating on the go? What is your practice when it comes to encouraging meaningful connections with each other and our food?
So our 6-week program that we start with is really touching on all the bad habits and all the education to prep them for that next phase, sitting down and being mindful. We have mindfulness in our program, and then through the entire 6-week program, and then it's the practice after, right? It's the practice of that after. So we do touch on that. We do give challenges. We do ask people to post their dinners up. We do ask people, hey, we have a lot of people say, my kid loved this meal.
And we always say, like, and the meals that we have are super simple, right? We're not slaving.
We don't have time to slave.
Chefs.
We don't have time to slave.
But like a lot of the meals are very family friendly. Mm-hmm. And listen, some families are more challenging than others, and their schedules are more challenging than others these days. And it's not but when you can have it, like Wednesday nights in my house, we all have the time. So I like to make something that I know everyone's going to eat. Mm-hmm. Right. And it's you, at least they know it. Like, It's very different certain nights of the week. So you can't lock yourself into it or feel bad if you can't do it.
Right.
Because some schedules just don't allow for it. But we do very mindful eating, like plate your food, look at your food.
Yes.
What is it doing? What does it look like to you? Go slow, taste it. What does it remind you of? Like, don't just stand in your kitchen and inhale your food and then walk away and you're like, what did I just do? Like, look at it first, acknowledge it, and recognize that you're doing something kind for yourself. So there's a huge mindfulness in our program, recognizing your hunger cues. Are you
really
full?
hungry?
Did that work? Journal it. Like, let's have these real conversations because, again, people are just trying to break habits and, no matter what they're eating, sometimes it's hard to break a habit, right? Like, for some reason, every time you walk in your house, you go to your refrigerator. You might have just come home from dinner.
Yep.
But for some reason, that's what you do, right? So it's really a lot of pausing, self-talk, and being visual. Very visual program. A lot of visual.
Caren said journaling, and what we do after we get the basics down and how they, they have their sort of guide of what's working for them is they're journaling, but they're not journaling the amount of food they're eating because they know that already. They're journaling how the food makes them feel. Does it keep them full through the day? Did it get them through their witching hour? Did it bloat me? Did it make me feel lethargic? Did it make me feel fantastic? So it's now having now creating a habit to have a better relationship with your food.
And to develop awareness of the
100%.
relationship between the foods that we have and our energy levels or our bodies and how they react and respond.
Another big one we get is skin conditions. We have a lot of skin conditions go away with just taking what, and at the time, they don't know what it is, right? Because they're just eating, they're just doing whatever. And when you become self-aware and mindful and of what you're putting in your body, you realize that is what was giving me hives, or that is what was making me itch or making me break out or making my skin dry, whatever it is.
Absolutely. And I think that so many people are captive to their habits. 60 to 80% of everything we do is entirely automated by the subconscious mind. And so many applause to you for helping people grow their awareness of the relationship between what they eat and how their body responds.
And I think on that note of kind of habit stacking, something that, Tony and I have both experienced, whether it be with family, friends, clients, sometimes for some people, it takes them being face to face with like extreme duress with their health, for example. Like it takes this like getting to a really hard place for people to finally kind of wake up and turn their life around or adjust their nutrition. And so I'm curious if that's been the same experience for you, and if you can kind of speak to why you think that is such a prevalent issue in our society.
Yeah.
So it's a great question. And I was, my initial thought on that is, because I think back to my young self, right? Like, you asked me that question and I think, when did I start to really care? And I'll tell you, I started to really care when I was like 15, but I cared for the wrong reasons. I cared because my jeans weren't fitting the way I wanted them to fit anymore, right? So I did anything I needed to do to be skinny. Didn't matter. That's not healthy. Skinny is not healthy, right? So all those choices that I made, I had to undo as an adult, right? There's a lot of undoing because there was a long time of doing wrong, because I think we're very vain. As humans, we are just vain people. So we don't care what we're doing because we can't physically see what's happening inside. So we just make the choice for what we look like in our jeans. And if we have shoulders or biceps, and that's all we care about. We don't care about the fact that we're smoking cigarettes and we're not eating and we're going on some crazy cabbage diet because that's what we were told to do, right? Or we're eating sugar-free, fat-free food. We have absolutely no energy. We're not feeling well, but we're young. So we bounce right back, right? You don't even realize it's happening, and the things that you used to do to your body. And then as you get older and you start to get crickety or you get blood work back, you start to recognize that the decisions that you made, you have to now undo. And I think that a lot of the reason people don't do it earlier is because you just don't think it's going to happen to you. Yep. It doesn't happen to you. It happens to the other person. So I would just give this bit of advice that we really do. And we've heard 100 times, we have this one body. take care of it. No different than your children's habits starting young, so they don't have to fight those habits when they're older. Like if we're trying to raise good humans and we're trying to make their lives as easy as possible, because that's what we're trying to do, right? Like help them create healthy habits when they're younger so that they don't have to fight to undo all of the damage that they've done, whether it's a habit or whether it's life choices that they have to undo. So we really do have an opportunity as parents to start that young. But it's staying the course, because it's definitely easier to turn the TV on and give them candy. It is, but that's not our job, right? So I think it's getting uncomfortable. And I do believe that a lot of the reason that we started too young is we were just unaware and it was just vain. Yeah. Our parents didn't know. Our parents didn't work out. They went to clubs and danced. Yep. That's how they exercised, right?
I'm 49. I grew up in the fat-free world, and we remember the fat-free world. It was, that's the first thing you looked at when you looked at a food label, right? How much fat is in it? Okay, that's going to be good for me. No one looked at the ingredients of what they had to put into that food to make it taste okay. And they weren't real. And now, unfortunately, in my age group, there is a huge spike in all sorts of cancers and all sorts of diseases. Yeah. And it's not just one. It's all different, weird, crazy kind of stuff, right? And I can't help but believe that it has to do with how we ate growing up. Yeah. They just didn't know. Right.
That's indisputable. No, that's indisputable, because in many cases, what they're doing is stripping the good, healthy fats and replacing it with sugars and artificial sweeteners that are now known to be causes of cancer because our bodies can't process them.
Like stuff they make tires out of. Yeah. For better shelf life, right?
They do. Like it's really, it's interesting because when you actually think about the things that they feed you in a hospital.
Oh, it's awful.
It's really sad. Awful. So we teach that a lot. Like we're all about natural food, but we're not tree hugging, seed eating people. Like we're real people that make real food, that like to have some drinks, that love French fries and potato chips. We just know when we're going to have them and what we're going to do. Because if we do everything right, most of the time, you have room for the things that are not so great for you, because that is also fun. And there's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with a slice of pizza. There's nothing wrong with French fries. It's just not okay every single day. So it's really about understanding what you're putting in your body, because eating clean is not a punishment. It's being kind to yourself. Yep. No different than getting a massage or taking a nap or enjoying your morning cup of coffee. It's being kind, and you're doing the right thing. And when you truly understand that food is energy, and the type of energy you're putting in is the type of energy you're going to get out, you enjoy eating well.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you do. You do. The week one of our program, we always warn people, you may not feel good for a couple days because you're let's make it clear. I hate the word detoxing, but you're detoxing. You are. Mm-hmm. From sugar, chemicals, whatever, and some worse than others, some not too bad, right? But on day 5 and 6 and into day 7, when all of a sudden we're getting comments like the fog lifted. Oh my God. I can't believe the difference how I feel. Yep. And it's just amazing that it's no different than an alcohol or a drug detox.
And I just think as adults, we don't think about our food making us feel a certain way. Right. We're like, oh, I'm just so achy. I'm so tired. Yeah.
I'm getting old.
My stomach is always uncomfortable. I gotta go to the doctor. Yeah. No. Maybe you have to look about what you're eating and realize that the energy you're putting in, that's what's happening.
Food is energy. That's what it is.
Chemicals that are in your food that you're unaware of because you just don't know, that your body has no idea what to do with a chemical. So it's just going to store it as fat
and break your cells down.
Never going to be energy. Nope. Never. It's not possible for it to be converted to energy. And then, but yet you're scared of having a real slab of butter, right? Where butter is perfectly fine. Heavy cream is perfectly fine. Your body knows exactly what to do with real mayo. If you look at the back of light mayo and real mayo, I don't even know what those ingredients are. If I can't read it, my body can't read it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Coffee creamers are like that too. If you flip over Coffee Mate and there's not even milk or cream in Coffee Mate.
Yeah, there's
just
like
for the record.
soy and
and if you flip over a natural Coffee Mate, it's milk, cream, and maybe a little bit of sugar.
Sugar, and if you have vanilla, it's vanilla.
And vanilla, right? That's it. But if you next time go to the grocery store and get the Fruity Pebbles Cocoa Pebble coffee meat, whatever it's in season, like whatever it is, and look, you don't even know what's in there.
Right.
It's scary.
So I just think that's like a big part, is that people just don't know. So they think they're doing everything right.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, well, it's low fat. Like, I don't touch anything that's low fat. That scares me.
Right.
I'm like,
And
I don't know.
shame on the people in the marketing industries that are taking advantage of that ignorance and making people sick.
Yep.
Because you see natural, and if you flip over the label, it's got several ingredients you can't pronounce.
Right.
You see low fat, you see no sugar added, or you see, and they've replaced it with aspartame or sucralose.
Yep.
And so I actually want to stop here just for a moment. And for the person who is unaware and who is just label shopping without looking at ingredients, obviously the first stage is to educate yourself, maybe through your program, about what it means to look at a label and what to look for. But what other steps would you encourage someone who's brand new at this and who doesn't have many skills to take if they're trying to just start the process of eating healthier?
Eat out of your refrigerator.
Yep. Eat out of your refrigerator. If you look at the grocery store, think about the grocery store for a minute. The perimeter of the grocery store is all your cold stuff, all your healthy stuff, for the most part, right? Right? What's in the middle of the grocery store? Your processed foods. And of course, we have to go there here and there for some things, right? Your sodas, your garbage in the middle. So if you shop the perimeter of the grocery store most of the time, with a few exceptions, you're already starting to eat healthier.
Which needs to go in your refrigerator.
So
if you, like I always say to my kids, like when they go to a snack and they open up the snack, like the cabinet, I'm like, can we just try the refrigerator? Maybe just try to eat a snack out of the refrigerator, right? It's easy enough to make a dozen hard-boiled eggs and make some chicken salad, or get your local deli's chicken salad or tuna salad or egg salad, because the yolk is perfectly fine. It's where all the vitamins are. You're not going to get high cholesterol from eggs. It is proven. So it's understanding that the real food is the way to go. Not only is it giving you all of the energy that you need, it's full of all of the vitamins, and it's going to keep you satisfied.
Yep.
And you're not going to be constantly thinking about food and trying to grab for the next thing. Yep. So if I was to give you one bit of advice to anyone that doesn't want to sit there and get all worried about it, try to eat out of your refrigerator and make sure you're hydrated. Drink all your water.
That's great.
One other big thing that we push is that a calorie is not a calorie is not a calorie is not a calorie. All calories are not created equal. So people have a really, really hard time with that, because they're counters, they're point counters, they're macro counters. They're now listen, it's a tool, 100%. We're not saying it's not a tool, but when people get obsessed about calories, they think it's okay that they can have the Oreo cookie every day, or a bag of Oreo cookies, because it's that many calories versus a chicken salad, let's just say, right? Yeah. And your body is processing it totally different. When that food goes into your mouth and into your body processes crap very differently than real food.
So I'm going to go in two things that you just said. So we all have heard the word empty calorie, right? Empty calorie just means it has absolutely no nutrients whatsoever. It's not doing anything for you. It's not giving you any energy. It might give you a little sugar rush, because usually that's what an empty calorie is, right? And the other part where we keep talking about it being like the food you put in is what you get out. So, if you're just going to choose to have okay, if I'm allowed this many calories a day and I'm going to have it all in cake, what energy are you giving, right? You're just feeding yourself sugar. And I'm going to say it, and I use a scare tactic sometimes with my clients and with my daughters. Cancer feeds on sugar.
It does.
So if we're talking about the long game, and we're talking about adversity and being faced with something and trying not to be, and really trying to think about 10 years from now, I want to feel like X, Y, and Z. What do I need to do today to make sure that happens? Because when I was 17 years old, I wasn't thinking about myself at 46. And I wish that I was, because I wouldn't have had to undo so many things that I had to do over the years. So it's really just thinking about what do I want to feel like, and what steps do I need to take now to make that easier for myself? So having cake every single day is great. Sure. If you have that and that's the only thing you're eating and your jeans look great when you zip them up, fantastic. But how are you sleeping? How are you feeling? How's your skin? How are your teeth? What is your blood work coming back like? Yep. So I just think that we need to really, really understand that food is, in fact, our energy. Yes, it's pleasure.
And our medicine.
Yeah. And our medicine.
100%. 100%.
And to your point, I want to speak to two issues, because this is something I'm very, very passionate about. Okay. My mom just had a stent placed in her heart because her major valve in her major artery was 99% blocked. She's also a surviving bulimic. She has gone through every binge and purge fad diet that exists out there. And it wasn't until she got to this point where her body is screaming at her to make changes that she's finally saying, okay, I have to stop and educate myself.
Yep.
And you spoke to something that is so important that I want to like stop the bus and announce to the world that what goes into our system is a direct plays a direct role in how our system functions and how it is able to self-cleanse and how it is able to remove toxins and how it's able to perform and move about the world. And one of our goals for each of our clients is to help create a system in which they feel young as they age and where they aren't as concerned about the superficial vanity, but they are concerned about what's inside and how well it functions. And for me, I had to undo, 25 years of disordered relationships with food in order to find what works for me. And the diet industry does everyone a disservice in two ways, in my opinion. Number one, they equate all calories as being the same. They talk about points, or they talk about you can eat whatever you want as long as it's within this simple rule schema. And number two is they create good foods and bad foods. They shame people into making decisions that may or may not be healthy for them, but it works within these parameters. What do you say to someone who is like my mom, who is at the point in life where their body is starting to scream at them, and how can they get beyond the tutelage or the knowledge they've learned from the diet industry and start to pick up the pieces and try and activate their life and make food become their medicine and make food become their energy?
They need to be educated.
I was going to say education.
Education. They need to be educated. And, each week in our program, we teach one educational topic. And we teach it so you can understand it. We're not throwing crazy scientific terms out. We're teaching simple things. We're teaching you why fiber is important, why all calories aren't the same, healthy fats, nutrition labels. I'm trying to think what else. Insulin levels.
Basically, our program is a course. It's set up like a course, and every week we teach you something that builds on the week before. Our program was built out of a need, right? So we had a bunch of women come up to us and ask us, saying, like, what do you do? What is it you do? We want to do what you do. Can you teach us what you do? So Lori and I put our heads together. We kind of put it, we got it was like on a piece of paper. I think it was a Word document. And we started to help these women, and it was working, right? But there was a lot of restriction and a lot of depriving. And like, once they were done, it came back on. And at the same time, I was still struggling with my disordered eating, right? So I was tired. I was tired of fighting a fight that I didn't know I was losing every single time. I would be great, and then I wasn't great. This was the last time, and then I'm never going to do it again. And you play this game with yourself, and you think that you're going to, this is the last time. It's never going to happen again, until you realize that food is not that scary. It's really not that scary if you truly understand it. So we got ourselves educated. We tested, we researched, we tested ourselves. And I can tell you, from an eating disordered background, it is scary as hell to eat an entire avocado. It is scary to have real mayo, and it is scary to have real cream, and it is scary to eat a chicken thigh because it's the dark meat and not the white meat. Like the things that we were taught and everything that we were told, you're going against because it was wrong. It was wrong. We need to eat real food with real fat, not saturated fat, not processed food, not fat-free, sugar-free. Not you can have this many cookies because it only has 10 calories in it. Like you were always hungry. You were always angry. You were always ashamed. And you were tired. So it, I know, what it feels like. And I was tired of being fake. Here's these people asking me what I do. What do I do? You don't want to know what I do. You don't want to do what I do. Right. So I was like, I'm tired. And at the same time, people were coming to her. We put our brains together. The education for me cured me. It cured me forever. I don't think about it. Do I still have a relationship with food? Absolutely. Absolutely. It is way healthier. I'm I'm not mad at it anymore. I'm not mad at food anymore. I used to be mad at food. Right. So I was tired of it. And I really believe that what cured me was education.
What I would say to anybody who's struggling with this is what Caren and I say on our first call. In the first 5 minutes, it says, please open your mind, throw away everything you think you know about food, and give us 6 weeks to educate you. Yep. Open your mind, throw everything away you think you know.
Yep.
Let's open our mind and let's break some bad habits.
Which is why we take it week by week, because then it's really overwhelming. So week 1, we're like, okay, we're going to focus on good fat. We're going to trust it. Ready? Let's try it. This is how much we're going to have. We're not going to overdo it. We're going to, follow the menu. It's very simple. And all of a sudden people are like, holy cow, I'm not hungry. Wow, I had breakfast and it's 12 o'clock and I'm just thinking about eating. Right? So I'm not craving what I thought I was craving. Oh, my stomach feels better because they just took everything bad out and they're putting the good in. And then like the next week, okay, let's try to add this in. Let's see what happens. Yep. Let's tap in some dairy. Oh, that didn't work for me. Okay. I felt great on dairy. Great. Because there's no blueprint. Right. So it's really a matter of testing it on yourself, but you're testing it with a team of people.
Yeah. It's scary to do that on your own.
It's scary.
You need the guidance and you need the support and the no judgment, right? Yeah. There's no judgment, right? Because everybody's battling something different. Everybody's coming from a different place. So it's super important to remember that. And, everyone's going to find their way.
And I really like what you were just describing as far as a community, right? Yeah. And needing the support of other people. And I'm wondering if we can kind of continue on that tangent for a minute. So what role, if you can kind of, continue talking about that, what role do you think community plays in terms of nutrition? What is the role that community plays in your company, and supporting, clients? How does that all look?
Well, you think about how, we beat ourselves up, right? We just like the first, conversation we had today about, judgment and being insecure and feeling bad about yourself and beating yourself up. And what if you joined a community that, again, went back to no judgment, that was supportive, that said, oh my God, I fell off the wagon this weekend. I feel terrible about myself. And then what if somebody said to you something that just changed your day? Like, hey, don't worry about it. Pick yourself back up. Let's go. Like, you got this. Like, never miss a Monday. Get to the gym, right? And we'll say, what is your plan? Every Monday morning, what is your plan for the week, right? We're here to support you. Who needs help? Who's going out to dinner tonight? What do you need? Let's look at the menu, right? So if you have that support and you're going out to dinner and you feel like you don't want to cheat. You're like, I'm feeling really good. I just want to get something healthy, but I have no idea what I should be getting on this menu. Let's look at the menu. You go in with a plan, you're going to win. That little 5-minute conversation can change somebody's life.
And I think the fact that it's a sounding board, and so it's all done on Facebook. We have and we do Zooms, we have our education, and whether you've fallen and you're getting back up, or isn't it nice to be able to brag to people that you're doing the same thing with? How fun is it to just be like, hey, everybody, just wanted to let you know my ring is spinning. It fell off my hand today when I was talking, right? Everyone that you just told is like, yay, because we're all in the same boat. We're all like-minded people. Yeah. And we say right from the beginning, please do not judge yourself on someone else's success because everybody is different. Everyone's coming from a different starting point and everyone has a different end goal. So just be happy for everybody and know that your system might be different than someone else's. So do not compare because no one is the same. And I think it actually helps people feel okay about it. We have a coach that helps us. She's wonderful. She did our program.
Oh, this is a good story.
And she's, she'll always say she's done every program out there. And she said the reason that this one worked for her was because she felt like she wasn't failing. If she messed up, she didn't feel like she was a failure. And she was like, forget it. I can't do it. She was like, oh, wait a minute. They said if I do this, if I just do A, B, and C, I'll undo that and I'll get right back on track. So I'm going to leave that aside. I'm not going to have guilt about it. I'm just going to do what was told for me to do to pick myself back up because we're all going to fall.
And that's creating a new habit. Going back to habits again, is your habit was, oh, forget it. I'll start on Monday again. It's Tuesday morning. I'll start next Monday again, right? And if you can create a plan with a community that supports you, again, another tool for long-term success.
Oh, go ahead.
And what I heard you say ultimately is that you do a really important work in normalizing struggle, in encouraging real vulnerability, and people sharing authentically some of their wins, some of their struggles, and that ultimately creating a community that can support one another. But I also want to give credit to Caren, specifically by speaking of her struggle and normalizing the idea that even when we're coaches, we aren't perfect. There's always something we can learn. And I want you to kind of, you hinted at it a bit, but I want you to kind of speak to some of your struggle, whether it be as a teenager, or, you know, in previous conversations, we've talked about, you know, when you became a mom, some things started to click. And then when you created this program, kind of talk about that, because I do think it's really important for listeners to know that even when you have the education, you still go through moments of ebbing and flowing. You still go through some disordered thought patterns, because that's what it means to be human.
Sure. Without a doubt. Without a doubt. So my struggles began my teenage years, 15, 16 years old, natural puberty, natural waking, because I didn't eat properly, right? My family didn't eat properly. We had yodels and ring dings. Like, that's what we ate. Like, you know, it was like, we had a nice dinner every night, but there was there was no like limitation. So like, you just, you know, and you could do whatever you want. And then all of a sudden, right, you can't. You're faced with adversity. So what are you going to do? I didn't know what to do. So I was like, oh, so I could just eat it and throw up. That's easy. Hey, that works, right? And then it becomes this crutch. It becomes what you know. And then, and it just, it's your, it's hard to explain how it becomes almost like this weird addiction. It's the only thing you know. It's the only coping mechanism that you have. And then it becomes an emotional relationship with the food, and it becomes a coping mechanism. So I believe that most disordered eating, when it's long enough, it becomes a coping mechanism. And it's trying to figure out how you deal with things that happen to you. And it's not just doing what you know to do, right? This is what you do. This is what works for you. I will actually say that I was, you know, I was doing this, and I was getting married, and I was getting pregnant, and I was pregnant, right? I never even thought I could get pregnant. That's how bad it was. Like, I was just like, I'm pregnant. My body's working, right? Like, it would have been a long time of me hurting myself and me not knowing how to fix it. Right. So when I was pregnant, it was the first time that I was at peace. The first time I can remember being at peace with my body, because it wasn't about me. It wasn't about me anymore. This was about this amazing thing that my body could do. And it was amazing to me that my body was able to do this. And I was doing this because I was creating another human being. And it was the first time in my life that I can genuinely say to you, I had peace. And I loved it. I loved being pregnant. Loved every minute of it. And of course, the second I had that baby, I thought I had to be back in those jeans in 30 seconds. So I figured out any which way to do it. And it came right back, because I didn't heal myself yet. Right. I still didn't understand my relationship with food. It was just a moment in time that I thought I was fixed, you know, and then it comes back. And so not until you really know that it's okay to live without it, right, that you can find another way to learn who you are. And just with the pure education and not being scared, and trusting yourself is a huge part of it. Trusting that it's
and having a community that you can lean into,
Sure.
and coaches that have been through it, right?
Sure. You know, we're real people. Like, we laugh. Like, you know, someone will see us out at a restaurant. They're like, "You're eating that?"
Oh my
We're
God.
like, we're real people. Like, we're not, you know, and that's what we pride ourselves on too, is that we're just like you.
Yeah.
Right. Just because we're your coach, your nutrition coach, doesn't mean that like we're perfect. We're moms that struggle just like you. And I think that's once a client knows that, they're also like, oh, okay, I can open up here. This is a safe place.
Mm-hmm.
We try our
I
best.
kind of want to touch on, you know, you mentioned, Caren, pregnancy and the change in your body. And my experience with being pregnant twice, I felt like my body was always a spectacle. Like, people always wanted to comment on, you're so big, or you're so small, or, you know, and yes, there's that whole idea out there that after you have a baby, that this baby weight needs to come off in a certain amount of time. And I'm just wondering if you can speak to maybe any of your clients, moms out there, or dads, right, postpartum, who have experienced some of that, and what kind of advice you give them, because I do feel like, yeah, there's this really unique part in time where, yeah, your body is doing something so amazing and the world almost sees it and like
Yes,
wants
totally.
to also yeah.
Totally. It is a little like a weird thing. It feels like your birthday every day. Like someone's always making a
Right.
comment, right? Like you're like, oh my God, you're so cute. Oh my God, how far are you? Oh my God, can I touch it? And you're like, it's my birthday every single day. My suggestion is the same thing I would say to people that are trying to lose weight at any stage of their life. Be patient and be kind to yourself, right? It took you 9 months and your body just did something that's really amazing. Your body is not a rubber band. It's not just going to go, bang, right? So like it's 9 months up and it's legit, guys, 9 months to a year down. Your body has to be put back together. Your organs need to move. Your ribs need to move back. Your spine has shifted. Like we don't give ourselves time. We don't give ourselves time. Like genuinely, we were built, right, to make babies, right? So it's, you got to let everything come back, and things are not always going to be exactly as they were before. And who cares? Because you have this beautiful, beautiful baby, and it's really the small stuff, right? Like in the end, like my body was capable of doing that. Like, I think that is, if you start to stop, because everyone does it. So you think that it's, everyone does it, but everyone doesn't do it, right?
So change in your
It's
mindset,
still miraculous.
right? Yeah, it's a change in mindset to say, wow, instead of saying, woe is me, I can't get the baby weight off, or I can't, do an ab crunch anymore for a year or whatever it is. Say, wow, look what I just did. And that's pretty awesome.
It's a point of view. And I also think just giving yourself time. And I think recognizing that goes back to not comparing. Please do not compare yourself to the person next to you. You don't know their genetics.
Right.
You have no idea what their pregnancy was like. You know nothing. So just be kind to yourself. Do the right thing. I mean, don't just throw your hands up and not take care of yourself. Like, eat healthy, eat well, hydrate yourself. Understand, even if you're nursing, I mean, gosh, that's just as hard.
Yep.
The amount of nutrients you need to make solid milk for a baby. People are like, oh, you're nursing. You can eat whatever you want. No, why would I eat whatever I want? Don't I want quality milk? So I just feel like we have to start shifting that mindset of like, just even when you're pregnant, when people are like, I'm pregnant, I can eat whatever I want. I'm like, that's the worst time to eat whatever you want. Like, the worst time. Just because you're allowed to gain weight doesn't mean that you eat ice cream every day. Like just, of course, treat yourself, have fun, but just listen to what your body needs. It's telling you. It's telling you what it needs, right? So like if you're craving a burger, eat a burger. You need it. So I just think there's a lot that goes in with people like have this idea that they can have whatever they want or do whatever they want. And that's being kind to yourself as opposed to let's change that point of view, right? Like looking at your plate and it's a rainbow, like that's being kind to yourself.
I love that.
And I want you to speak to the kind of basic tenets of your program, because we've kind of circled around it. It's 6 weeks. There's Zoom and Facebook. What if somebody was listening and wanted to get started with your program, what would they expect to receive over that 6 weeks, and what could they expect to get out of it?
Yeah. So, we always start with an introduction call that we explain the whole program. Everything is online based. So you have access to a portal, you have access to a recipe portal, and then you also have access to our private Facebook page. And that page is just for the people in the current challenge. So it's just that community. There's no other people in there. Everyone's in the same boat you are with the challenge.
That's where like the real live interaction, like real time happens. Like we'll get a ping and someone's in the supermarket. They're like taking a picture of the back of the label. Like, is this what you're talking about? Can we have this? And we're like, it's a thumbs up. You could buy that. But notice what it says, right? We talked about fiber. Is there fiber in it? So we really take your hand and educate you all the way through with samples, with ideas, with experience, because that's how you learn.
Right. And every program is always a little different, right? It's still the same education, but it's depending on the people in the program. It's always a little different. It's always, it could be a very quiet group. It could be a very loud group. It could be, a group that just wants to take 5 pounds off and eat healthier, or a group that has a bunch of people that really have a long-term, issues that need to be addressed. So it's actually really fun for us because there's not a challenge that we've had where we haven't had to go look something up or been like, I'm going to check on that one, right? Because everything is changing all the time. Right. And with food, I can't say to you, go and buy this Trader Joe's hummus because you may not have a Trader Joe's by you. right? So that's why it's very interactive, where people like will post on the board like, hey, can I have this? Or I found this new bar. What do you think about this? We may have never even heard of it yet.
Right.
So it's really, really cool. And once they start getting it, like, they're like, oh, right, I saw this and I see the fiber in here, so I'm going to move this to here. And when they start to get it, they always look like deer in headlights on week 1.
Yeah.
And by week 6, you're like, I got this.
So,
got this.
And they'll start to say like, oh, I'm getting it. Oh,
Yeah.
I'm getting it, because we take it slow. Like, so our symbol, if you can see it, is an infinity sign, because everything comes back in full circle, right? This is science. You can't argue with science.
Yep.
We're teaching you the simple science behind food. Why cleaning is important, what happens. We start with good fat. We move into fiber, insulin in your body, understanding what insulin does. Like, why am I eating that? So like, if you understand how insulin reaction happens in your body and that hormone reaction, you're going to think differently when you're going to pick something up, because you're like, oh, that's what they were talking about. Right. So, and then we teach you intermittent fasting if you want to use that as a tool. We have plateau busters. We are totally into gut health because it's the brain of everything.
Yeah.
We teach you how you digest, right? Like, no one even thinks about our digestive tract, but when you actually think about gut health and what it means, you're not just saying gut health, you can visualize, because everything in our program is visual. If you could physically visualize, oh, well, this is happening. So, oh, I get what you mean. That's why I'm bloated. Oh, that's why I feel better. Because I'm doing it. We don't just teach you it, but we teach you it and then we practice it.
Yep.
So we teach it, we practice, we teach it, we practice, we teach it, we practice, and then it builds and builds. Sorry,
finishing other sentences. No, I was going to say what she said. One other thing that we do is we do bring mindset into every week. So we ask them, what is your mantra? What were you successful about this week? What were you not successful about this week? What are you going to work on this week? Right? So they may have a mantra in week 1 that may totally change by week 6. We don't count calories. We use them as a guide. What else? Oh, we're all, as Caren said, we're all very visual. So our portion controls are very visual. Everything is like a picture. We're showing you like what to look at your plate, those tips, those hints, those tricks. And the more people communicate on the board and talk in the Zoom calls, the more you get out of it.
Yeah, it's fun.
So we're like, there's never a stupid question, because your question is probably being thought of by 3 other people.
Or they'll come on and be like, this might have been asked 4 weeks ago, but I'm asking again. Okay, you didn't get it the first time. You weren't, that's totally fine. So, it's a very visual program. And I also want to say, like, people think they're doing everything right. And like, they'll tell me what they're eating. I'm like, everything sounds great. Just don't eat that all in one day. And they're like, what? Because they don't understand insulin. They don't understand the insulin reaction in their body. So like, they're having oatmeal in the morning and they're having quinoa, and at night they're having some lentils and a sweet potato. Everything's great. That's all great food. I'm all in. But let's place that differently. So we just take everything and we put your piece of your puzzle together so that by the end of the 6 weeks, your whole picture comes into frame and you're like, oh, that's my lifestyle.
And then you practice with us monthly.
Yeah.
So then they can go month to month. And they get a private call, they get group calls, they get additional advanced menu guides. Like once they have sort of their lifestyle set, plateau busting menu guides. Maybe, well, I'm slowing down, or I'm just not happy, or this is bloating. Let's try this instead. Continued recipes. And then even like our holiday program is coming up. That starts on the Monday before Thanksgiving. And it goes all the way to New Year's Day. So it's the same kind of program, but it's based around the holidays. So there's more parties. All the food in the program is going to be holiday based. We're going to teach you, what to bring to the party. Or if you're going to go out and go all out, this is what you're going to do. This is going to be your plan. So the holiday program is probably one of our most successful programs, because going back to mindset, people are like, forget it, I'm going to start in January. But the people who start with us over the holidays are probably the most successful, because they truly want to be there and they're truly focused, hyper focused, and they're in. And they're like, I want to look good in my holiday dress. Right. I don't want to be blah, 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 right? Like, you can have your holiday cookies. We're going to teach you how to make healthy ones. We're going to teach you how to eat the ones you love. And we're going to teach you what to do around it. And everybody in that group is in the same position. The last 2 weeks of the year and the last 2 weeks of the summer are the hardest of think about it, right? Hardest. Everyone's like,
because the world's on vacation.
Yeah.
No one works between Christmas and New Year's. So the world is on vacation. So everyone has this vacation brain, which is totally fine, right? But imagine doing like 5 weeks leading up to it where you're super clean, that you kind of let it go a little bit that week. You're not like totally undoing everything, right? So it's a hard week. The whole world, even if you're not going anywhere, you're like,
yeah. And, we do fun challenges. Like we do some fitness challenges in it too, to just keep you moving, right? Like, you can go to your gym and do whatever you want, but like, let's make sure that you get 1,000 push-ups in this week,
Yeah, it's
whatever.
fine.
Like, and it's like, we have a great time.
Going back to it, if you keep humor in it, it makes it
Yeah.
not as stressful. Like, this is not, no one's getting graded. You didn't fail.
No.
Right? It's just a different mindset. It's literally opening up your mind to understanding that what we put in our body is what we get out. And how do you want to feel? How do you want to look? Of course, but how do you want to feel? How do you want to show up? And that's it.
So I'm curious, we've talked a lot about nutrition for our families or nutrition for ourselves, and something that we haven't touched on yet, but how that conversation, planning, cooking goes when you have a partner. And I'm wondering if you can speak to maybe how your own relationships with nutrition and food look with your partners, and maybe how they've evolved, or if they have over the years, and what kind of advice you give to to people who do have a partner, because I think so often you live in the same home, your food does affect each other, and that can either be an incredibly enriching experience. That's something for Tony and I, where we love the opportunity to cook together and to cook with our daughter and show her, but it can also have the opposite effect where you're bringing each other down. So if you could just speak to kind of that type of relationship too, and how that plays out.
Sometimes we'll have clients who say, you know what, I really want this, but my partner's not being supportive. I'll, be trying to be really good at night, and he'll come sit with a bucket of ice cream next to me because he doesn't gain weight. Like, you have to have the support at home. You really do. My husband would joke with me. He's like, "What dirt are you making tonight?" But then you know what? He'll taste it and he's like, "This is pretty good."
Right.
You have to have the support at home. You have to have somebody who is in your corner, because we already know how insecure and how uncomfortable this is.
Right.
If you have someone not supporting you and coming sitting next to you with a gallon of ice cream while you're trying to be really good and it's not ice cream night for you, that sucks.
And I also think that if you just don't go into it with like, okay, we're starting a diet.
Right. We're starting a new lifestyle change. We're changing things out.
I'm just going to cook a little differently. And like, we've had husbands that are like, whatever, they just eat it. They're not even thinking about it. And they go get their blood work done and they're like, what are you feeding me? This is amazing. Yeah. Right. So, but they still have a steak dinner and they still do their things. They don't, like when they go out for a restaurant, they eat the burger. It's not that big of a deal. But like, I mean, I know in my house, like I eat like we preach, and I'm a very clean eater. And my partner is like, when we first started dating, he like loved everything. And the other day he admitted to me, he's like, I hate salmon. I'm like, you do? So like, now I just don't like salmon anymore. It's fine, because I know I can take it.
He was trying to be loving.
He was trying to be so sweet, right? But it's not that like I don't eat different meals than him, but there might always just be a little something that he likes for him, and there's my salad for me. Like, we're still in the same space. You know what? I can't force him to like the things that I like. Right. And I don't always want to eat the things that he likes. So we have our mutual dinner, but like, I always make a salad. Always. There's always a salad on the table because that's what I like. He can have it or not have it, and so nice. I make something for him that I know that he loves. And it's just about, it's about conversation. It really is. And it's about being open-minded. Really.
What about some examples of, we'll have somebody that they'll join and they'll be like, oh, my husband's gonna be on board with this too, because I'm cooking the same thing. And all of a sudden, like 3 weeks later, she's like, well, I'm down 5 pounds, but he's down 15 pounds. Like things like that, right? And sometimes it's just like, this is what we're having, right? Or like, just getting your partner on board is huge, right? Even if, like Caren said, like she's always got a salad on the table. Like one of our big clients, like say she's making chicken for dinner and she just wants a salad with it. Like she'll cook up some pasta or rice too, and the boys or her husband would have that, right? So it's still sort of the same meal. You just may be switching something out that may not be in your plan that night.
Right. And again, you're still trying to feed your entire family healthy, right? Like, it's not like you're just trying to feed yourself healthy. So you're not like, well, I'm going to eat really healthy, but you guys can have the fried chicken because I don't care about you.
Or the time you don't tell them and they're like, this is really good. And you're like, hey, it's clean.
I think if I think about the question like you asked, it's no different than breaking habits for our clients. Like if their partner is not on board yet, like they obviously need to make some changes too. because they're not eating healthy if they're not being supportive and they're eating whatever they want, that they have to kind of look at themselves and be like, well, wait a minute. Like, it's not just about your clothes fitting.
Yeah.
This is about the long game. So I think that if our members can say to their partners, listen, this is not just about our genes. Like, let's just think about our long game. Look at our daughter. Like, think about in 10 years from now. Like, maybe we shouldn't have steak 3 times a week.
Or maybe just change one thing at a time, right? Like, maybe just try to change out some little habits.
Yep.
You know, not like Caren said, like, don't go in saying, we're going to try this diet, because it's not a diet.
Right.
You know, we're just going to change some things up. We're just going to try some different things and see if we can get a little healthier.
I would just say to my partner the same thing I said to my kids when they're little. It's the 3-bite rule, which is also our dessert rule, by the way. 3-bite rule. Have to try it 3 times. If you really don't like it after 3 times, and you don't like it, you can't tell me you don't like it after the first bite, not the second. After the third one, you can tell me you really don't like it. So I'm going to cook this for you. You're going to try it. I'm going to cook it one more time. At the third time, if you really don't like it, I'm not making cauliflower rice anymore. I will make whole cauliflower. We'll call it what it is. It's fine. I can have whole cauliflower, right? So, you know, some people just have a certain style of eating, right? Like, my partner's like, I want my vegetable to look like a vegetable. I don't want it to be ground up. Okay. Fine. We're still going to eat cauliflower, though. You know, so,
right. Like, my son won't eat anything mushy, right? So it's like, he'll eat a hard-boiled egg, but he won't eat scrambled eggs. Okay.
Which is fine. You like what you like, right? You like what you
got to figure it out.
And thank you so much for sharing that 3-bite rule. I think that's something we're going to implement in our house. I think that you spoke to a couple of things that are really important for people to consider. Number one, as the heads of household and as a team, we may not have the same interests or the same preferences, but we have the same end goals, right? We all want to be happier, healthier, more fulfilled, whether it's having our clothes fit better or feeling youthful as we age. We all have those same goals of modeling the best practices and the habits to our kids. And so one of the things we promote to do that is to be an instigator of change, to lead by example. And I wonder, do couples ever do your program together? And if not, do you hear stories about how, you know, the moms or the dads share the wisdom or the knowledge and end up implementing the change in their home?
Absolutely. Yeah. Without a doubt. They absolutely do it together. You know, some of the husbands are the ones that are cooking, right? They're the cook. They're the one they cook, you know, and we'll get pictures like, okay, you know, so Jim made this for us, blah, blah, blah. And this is lunch and this is leftovers. Like, she's not cooking. It's her husband. That's what he loves to do it. So he just cooks differently. When she's like, listen, we're going on this program, he's like, tell me what I'm cooking. Yeah. So my brother and sister-in-law did our program, and they actually, not only were they successful on it, and they're still doing it because they learned something. They really enjoyed food shopping together. They enjoyed picking out what their meals were going to be during the week. They, like, things that she didn't like to do, he did for her. So it gave them something to do together. It really did. Like, it wasn't just someone's role anymore. So it actually kind of like you two enjoy having dinner together, cooking together. Like, they didn't know they liked to do it, and they really started enjoying doing it together, and they still do it. Like, I just saw him. He's like, we're all prepped and ready to go for the week. I'm like, great.
We also had a client who, like, her whole family was on board. I don't know what she did, but her kids eat everything. And she has she has a big chalkboard up in her kitchen, and she's got the weekly menu. They both work full time. They're both hustlers. The weekly menu up and what their snacks are going to be like, or their snacks for the week and everything. And her kids are embracing it. Her family's embracing it.
And they pick it out. They're like, Mom, can you make the pesto meatballs for us? Sure. Right. Like, they happen to be phenomenal eaters. I mean, they eat like oysters.
Yeah, they're like, I don't know what she did. It's great.
Yeah. They're expensive when you take them out for dinner. But
and to the point of encountering resistance with your partner or your kids, I think it's really important to discuss or to help them understand that it might be their idea, like by asking generative questions. So what we tell our clients to do is go to your partner and have an honest, open conversation in a space that is non-threatening, and ask, what would it look like for you to feel a little bit more energy and to feel a little bit more confident in your own skin? Mm-hmm. What would it take for you to want to do that? and having honest conversations that focus on the end game and then allow you to both figure out the process on how to achieve those goals together.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that we like to do is promote dialogue. And that's why we really support your program that offers real community support. And I really like the idea that each program is different and unique. And it's also, you get out of it what you put in.
Yep.
Can you, before we move on to kind of end the show, I want you to talk about your book that kind of became the impetus for your program. Mm-hmm. So the book is called Grow Your Mind, Shrink Your Body. Can you discuss?
Other way around. It's called Shrink Your Body, Grow Your Mind.
Awesome. Shrink Your Body, Grow Your Mind. Can you talk about some of the central takeaways and who the target audience is for your book?
Sure. So it's basically our 6-week program, but not with the live coaching. And what's in a book is in a book, right? So if something new comes up, I can't just throw this in the book. But it is the base of our program. If somebody's interested in just learning more, the base education, they know nothing. There's very simple menu plans in there, very simple recipes, and just all the education and some fitness in there. So it's a nice kickstart. But we have found too is that people could just use the book and do a great job, or they found that I did the book, but now I want more. Like I want to learn more. This is working for me, so they'll come to us on that end.
And the name, as it is, we're sitting exactly where we are, is actually, if you think about what we're saying shrink your body, grow your mind, right? Because that's really, in a nutshell, what we're trying to do is trying to open your mind up to understanding what real food is. And when you do it right and you do it, you naturally are going to shrink your body.
Yep.
Right? Let's not start off with okay, I have a goal. My goal is 20 pounds, which is totally fine. Whatever gets you through the door and gets you started. But once you're in it and you start to recognize that, well, holy cow, I feel better. Mm-hmm. You're like, wait a minute, I get this. This is
and that goal of
you are what you eat.
And that goal of 20 pounds, maybe 15 at the end, because they're feeling great and exactly where they want to be. So it's a nice kickstart, a great way to start everything off. And it just sort of balances, gives you a little intro to the program.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And I think it's also important for people who might not be ready or might not have the funds to be able to support, to buy the program, to know that they have an option of working with you and gaining the wisdom that you offer. So that's amazing. And you spoke to an upcoming holiday program. Can you speak to how people can access that program? Can you speak to I know we talked about maybe offering the listeners a discount.
Sure. Yeah.
Can you speak to some of that?
Yeah, so you could just go to our website. It's cleancutfit.com, or to any of our social medias on Facebook and Instagram and TikTok. They're all Clean Cut Fit Nutrition. And we'll always be posting on there. But if you go to our website, you'll be able to register. And if you use the code mindful-and-fit, MINDFULANDFIT, you'll get 10% off the next program.
Yay.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for offering that.
Yeah. So, we want to just, bring people in and I think, working with you guys and, working with the nutrition portion of everything, you're really going to get, long-term success, again, not only in your genes, but in your mind, in your heart, in your family. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And you have the ability to change generations and to impact your legacy for a lifetime and then some.
We have to.
And so thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us, Lori and Caren. You two are rock stars and an example of, you're an example of everything it means to be authentic and real at the same time as helping people transform their lives. And so keep doing what you're doing and keep putting good out into the world. We love you.
Love you guys. Thank you. All
right. Bye-bye.
Take care.
Bye-bye. Bye.
We hope you took some meaningful tools and skills that empower you to become your highest self in every way.
We also hope you'll help us spread our messages of solidarity, social support, and consciousness raising by subscribing to our YouTube channel at Mindful and Fit and offering us an honest 5-star review wherever you listen to podcasts.
Doing so helps more people hear these important messages of love, healing, and becoming.
And as always, much love from the Johnson family. We hope you make today amazing.
Just like you.